So I've got a crude drawing, yeah, and this is the brickwork from outside. So different types of insulation that we have in, and we get like a lot of mold and stuff like that. So let's see if we can limit that. Now, in a loft, if you can expose where the I don't know, let's say your boards are for your ceiling, and you're looking down, you should be able to see the cavities in the wall exposed. Yes.
Okay.
Well, most traditional extractor fans sit inside the building here.
Yeah.
Yeah? And try and suck in maybe from your windows or different areas and bring that air in. But if you've got this type of, so you've got your outer brickwork and then your insulation
Yeah.
and then your plasterboard,
Yeah.
which is here, yes?
And that is inside the red
Yeah,
roof?
that's inside. And then this would be the room that you occupy, let's say.
Okay.
Front room. Yeah?
Yeah.
There's a nice little sofa. And so if you were living in this part would be your like void where your insulation would go, yes? But in order to combat with damp versus insulation, there needs to be airflow. But airflow in all the wrong places is usually, and then you've got those other boxes that you have in where you have one in every room. That takes part of the air in, mixes it with some of the air outside, and this is supposed to combat or control moisture. But again, you are only dealing with the space here, and if the mold is growing in these areas, which is the cavity, you're not dealing with the problem. And this would be far more expensive for landlords to do it this way, and it won't work. It'll slow it down, but it won't work. So this way seems to be not the way to do it. However, so if we minus off all of that thought, that's the current format. So these are your ceilings, and in between it you've got your voids, which are in most buildings have it, and if you don't have it, then you should have it. Because this wall is going to condensate when it gets wet outside, regardless of which way the direction, whichever one's facing that rainfall, depending on wind direction. And if you remember that leak that was coming through the roof felt had gone on a place living at, and depending on the wind direction gave you which way the moisture would build up on the. That was kind of the first thing I think I learned was from a leak. It moves per direction. So if you think about that on the outside of your building, I mean, if there was a hole in a roof somewhere with a load of pressure sensors around the outside that were to detect rain, much like you have on your window wipers on your car when they come on automatically. So if you had one of these sensors all the way around, and depending on which way the wind was blowing, and it would read the moisture, you would get this sort of chart grow on a computer. And it would tell you that the direction of the... I mean, it's good science to know how things rot slowly but surely, but this isn't the case here. But if you notice that it's on each and every different wall, so it could be raining and the wind blow this way and the water droplets will hit this wall. Next time it could hit here. But if it's hitting this wall, it's unlikely that it's going to hit this wall over here. And then maybe tomorrow the wind's sort of this way or a bit this way, and if it rains, it's going to be hitting this side of the house and this side's not so. In that time, you would think that it would dry out, but it does condensate. But mold seems to work when conditions are right. So it sort of hibernates, we could say, when there's a lack of moisture and it becomes dry, and it also chooses to higher spore ratio. But when it's moist, it advances and grows, then it goes dormant, then goes dormant. So it hibernates. So coming out of the environment where it's all fluctuating, times are good, times are bad, times are all right, times are thriving, times are not great. In the terms of environment for fungus, it would learn to hibernate at certain times and wake up and become more active at certain times. So put this into a house and it's like a climate that's sped up. 1 minute this wall's moist but there's heat this side, okay, I can grow with this. And then before you know it gets around your house. So... And I think they fill this area up with insulation, which probably is not the best in the world. I'm not sure how it's all fully done, but I'd build it differently, I think. Actually, no, I would do this a lot different. One, I would put a vent in here. Now, if this vent was facing down, it's going to grab some air when something happens. So there'll be a draft come through here.
Yeah.
And the insulation would go on the back of this plasterboard before it's attached to any beam.
Yeah.
There should be beams in there. Now, the problem is probably that these areas here are all one. So you would need a vent per every gap, which you wouldn't if you could build the foundations in a way where you have a grill that runs underneath this area. Sort of a slight void around the entirety of the house would be nice. Not on your inner walls, but more so your outer walls. And that vent goes into that void. So it's to come up through each and every floor. Yes? The air needs to move. I'm not worried about how much air is going to be able to fit through this gap, but I need it to supply the whole of the outside. And it doesn't really matter whether it supplies all of it. So, because what it will allow is the air to move. So, in the loft area, there will be like a series of fans, and they will connect. See, being able to seal this off with one unit that just quickly slots together there as plastic, and then sort of have a tube that comes off of this bit would be good. And each one of these tubes on, another one goes here, a plastic housing and the same dip, and another one goes on this one on the outer wall. There's a door, so perhaps that's going to be blocked, but there might be air that flows from here to here. Now, with all of these on, it will come to a... So, if you've got 4 for your outer walls, perhaps, 1 on the inner wall. Tumble dryer pipes looking things, yeah? That will come from all of these. So, what's that? That was going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Perhaps maybe 10 compartments to take those. I'm going to sit here and draw them all, but you get the idea. And this one goes to each one, so it'll look like a spaceship inside. And these will be sectioned in the loft from the top to grab the cavity, and maybe have some sort of custom built plastic that can go over the whole of this area from here to here. It's easy to cut, it's easy to join, and another one can join into this one. And then the air is going to be pulled into this box. And then it's going to come from all of the cavities on the inside, and the air is then going to be pulled up towards the loft, out through the pipe into here, and then this will be vented outside. Now sure, that's going to bring in moist air, that is absolutely, but you want it to, because that's how the house would usually be. I think because we had fires.
Yeah, it is.
And this would have drawn, I don't know, I'd say that this would really be constantly sucking the air in from all your cavities in your wall, and perhaps down in the bottom where you've got your voids and everything else, and through the vents, and through the windows, and the fire would be sucking all of this air constantly, which then allowed the air to move. And I think that's what allowed the walls to get wet, on the outer walls, to get wet, get condensated, but also have that air so that it was moving up and it was moving out of the building. I think it's going to be a far more better process than going from room to room, because what you're doing essentially is you are not taking care of your house, you're just protecting one room from the inside, and that's like, I don't know, what's that, 20%? 80% of the room is not air volume around it where you need it, is just not being taken care of. And when you turn off an extractor fan, cold air comes in from outside. So there is always that. So you either got to have them on running 24/7. So again, it's very counterproductive, that one. So, and then a lot of the dust comes with it. So I think it's good in the beginning, but not so much to now. I think having one in the loft that sort of is easy to custom connect to the voids and move all of that air. The air comes in from around the house on the outside, down into that. It could be a little bit higher, I suppose, for the slightly older houses, but nothing blocking this chamber here. That is just purely for airflow, and the insulation goes on this bit. of your plasterboard. And I think that allows your room to heat up quite nicely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And if there's good insulation above, I think that will allow the warmth in the right area, but allow the condensation. And this fan box doesn't have to be on 24/7. It can come on for 5 minutes and go off for 10. Come on for 5. I think it will be that efficient. As long as there's enough air blowing out of here, then you know you've got a good amount of draw. And I think that's really good. But if you were to block this off, you might pull the air in from inside the house, which 1 or 2 rooms have one on the inside. And if they're quite low down, they won't suck out the heat. But they will. The air inside the room is definitely going to be up there hotter than a winter's day outside.
Yeah.
So if it has rained but not enough to be frozen, then this is going to condensate, and some of the air from inside the house is going to be just warm enough to speed up that evaporation process, which then pulls that moist air up and out. Because they say you need to be able to heat it. I'm not sure. I think keeping heat is gonna... This causes the condensation. I'm pretty sure of it. And I think the idea of insulation is to stop that warmth. But I just don't think it's going to ever be... No amount of insulation is going to stop the heat. It just slows it down. So it's still coming through. So you might as well go with that. There's air there. And isn't it the saying that if you've got cold air moving around the outer edges of your house, that it keeps it warmer as opposed to colder? I'm pretty sure there's something there. I don't know. Someone once said it, but I'm not sure because again, radiation. It will radiate into the colder air quicker than. So, not sure, but yeah, this way I think takes care of the rest of the building and should then take care of the tenants. Well, the extractor fans that are in the building would be good enough for like. Have a hot bath, it comes on. You know, you're cooking in the kitchen, it comes on. That is gonna, you know, that's like, if this is 80% of the house, which it isn't really technically, but and inside the house is like 20%, you've got a good 100% taken care of all the insulation is gonna be nice, no mold. The walls are gonna stand, very good, no mold. And if you're taking care of it on the inside, that should be win-win. Without it being too expensive, without it being too expensive in the terms of how hot it gets in a building. But if you've got your extractor fans on, it's just taking all of that hot air.
Yeah.
And especially if it's coming out of the storage heater, you're just venting all of that hot air. So, I don't know, I think this one would work. Maybe. It just needs some sort of plastic put on the... Just to be able to catch it from the top, and it allows all the air to move up those individual boards. If it does, it'll allow it to go out the house. As opposed to just dealing with inside the room and hoping that that's enough to vent the air from this portion here. Unless all the walls are cracked, then that'll let in air. But if that's pulling in air, and that's easier to do so, it's letting in moisture air in its presence. That wouldn't be very good. So you have to have very good integrity on your brickwork. I don't know, if you know, it's probably going to be a challenge to even install this, but you could pull a wall.
Yeah.
Put a wall inside your wall. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but it can be done. Just to make a small void in there. And then relay it with plasterboard, and then the air comes through. But I don't know if it'll pull it from your cavity space, which is where it's needed.
Yeah.
Because that air not venting out, and perhaps the air there not venting out doesn't see sunlight. If the sun is this way, this side of the house is not seeing sunlight, so it's going to be prone to build up with condensation no matter what, and it's going to be damp. And maybe everything on the inside is going to be damp on there as well. It's inevitability, but the air is no longer moving. And that could be the difference of what was different in the past to now. Well, missing a fireplace and that drawer is no longer there. Perhaps it was drawing from further afield everywhere. And that was enough to move that air, although wet, but it was going to be going into the fire anyway. The fire radiates a lot more heat than a storage heater, I guess, in an instant, as opposed to over a longer period of time. It's useless for that, but... Yeah, and then the storage heater forever is constantly trying to heat the room. And the energy bill, I don't care how insulated your loft is, that is being sucked out of each one of these at quite a rate to try and deal with a damp issue. Therefore, the building becomes very expensive, and it becomes a money pit to anyone that lives in it.
Yeah, it's hard to heat it, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that this would put people off. Never mind the damp, but also how expensive it is on the bills, and it never feels warm. So if that's a way to deal with damp, that is very poor. In fact, that's detrimental to the environment. You know, just put in an extractor fan. And then if you've got them running full blast to try and deal with another issue, yeah, that's not cost effective. And that is very down on an energy rating, because you're just heating the building to allow it to be sucked up through your vents. And heat rises anyway, so it... Before you know it, you've emptied your storage heaters within
a few moments.
A few hours, because they're constantly on trying to replace the lost heat. And then where you've got air going out, you've got air coming in. Yeah. Therefore, it's cold air entering in, your hot air is pushing out. Yeah. So the more cold air you have come in, the volume, the hot air is pushing up. And therefore, it acts like an empty syringe. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, and with storage heaters, once they are empty, they are empty.
Yeah. So, and again, mixing it with the air outside, inside, again, not cost effective. To be honest, I think that is detrimental. You've got to pay for that to run, knowing that it won't do any good. If the issue is inside here, having an extractor fan running 24/7 is only going to take care of the issue here. And then you're going to start to get structural damage, I think, from that, because you'll ignore it. Yeah. Because you can't see the issue, so therefore it must be fixed. So, no, I think this needs... Newer houses, this would be easier to put into practice, And then I wonder the difference in warmth inside the house. I wonder the quality of living inside the house as well. And would damp ever be an issue? And then heating bills. What does that reduce it by? I guess after all, I think it's a lot of it to me seems very guessworky so far. It could be this, could be that, could be that. I don't know. No, I think it's something's with the wall, and the air is stagnating in these areas now. Yeah. And again, if there is a void at the end of your house, cold air is going to be pooling into that, because it looks colder air falls down as deep as it can get, and then starts backing up from that. Heat tries to radiate into it. Yeah, I don't know, warms that slightly, but not fast enough. And then I think you start getting a condensation problem in this area because it is colder. Yeah. So anything that does heat and it's moist, I think it's going to be heavier than drier air. And therefore it's going to cool down quicker, and more damp is going to build up in these areas, and I think it starts to pull. So, and again, is it worth just getting a dehumidifier? Well, the dehumidifier is doing it in all of these rooms, but it's not doing it in the places that it needs to. It's just taking care of that aftermath effect. So, no, I don't think so. And I don't think that would, and it's expensive as well. So this is far cheaper because it's just a fan in a box. And it doesn't have to be on all the time. It can be on, off, on, off, on, off. Yeah. Doesn't have to be on all the time. And then depending on how effective it is, because it would be a work in science, yes, it would be a work in progress. You could have
it can be adapted. Can be
less until you're like, oh, we got a bit of an issue. Okay, we'll put it here. So here is the mark. Yeah. So this one becomes more energy efficient A setting, where it's
and different area where is more rain might be different.
Yeah, you could probably set that on a bit more of a C.
Each house can be different.
So you can have each setting, can't you? So if you get into an app, or it can become automatic if you have a little sensor. Again, like I said in the beginning, if one of those was made and it could be installed into something as small as a I don't know, something to sit on your roof. It can then adjust automatically depending on whether it's detected moisture. Ah, it's raining. Okay, right, we're going to turn this on and have this a little bit more. Or wait for the rain to pass, then turn it on. Because you don't want to be sucking in moist air, but again, at the same time, I don't know. There could be a way to deal with that. Perhaps have it enclosed, an area where the fresh air goes in. I'm not sure. It's possible, I suppose, but you don't want to be pulling in moist air, and you certainly don't want to be letting any water in through that either. So it could be a bit higher.
Yeah.
It will fall down anyway. It just wants somewhere where that air can move. But I think, from what I found with circulation issues and different things like that, it will move in this area, but it won't pull this from here.
Yeah.
It has to be lower in order to capture that. Yeah, I think it'll. This way works, but problematic if you've already got a house full of your insulation. You could suck it from the inside. Does that really work? Well, no, because the chimney with the
depends on what insulation you have as well.
And their likelihood again is when any door is open, that air is coming in through that vent rather than out. So it sort of is in, out, depending on what door's open, which way the wind is going. So that chimney is bringing in moisture. Probably best just to have them capped, to be fair, or just dropped. But again, yeah, I think I could convert all old chimneys into this. If it could be installed under the boards. If you've got voids under your flooring, under your wooden floor, it could be attached there as well and pull that air. Colder floor, but at least not damp. And then it might only need to be on one day, hit and miss, not on the next day. On one day, hit and miss.
Or twice a day.
Yeah,
morning,
twice a day.
evening, something, who knows. Depends on how it works there, in the area where it is.
Yeah. So, and I guess, when you get into a car after it's been raining and it steams up, and you've got the air vents, they're always trained toward the window, seem to be the most effective. Yeah. Well, if the walls that are filling up with this process should technically help. So, I don't know, perhaps that air in there is warm. So could there be a chamber, a heating chamber, that just sort of, when it comes on, heats the air that's going to come in? Just slightly. Or at least, I don't know, maybe. And as that comes on, it brings warmer air so it can have a chance at heating some of this moisture in there, and well, that will help the fan, but it shouldn't need it. But that can help because the hot air will want to rise and look for the highest exit. So that will just be more than happy to go there. There's less strain on the motor this way. Again, these motors are less strained because of the heat.
Yeah.
The air naturally wants to go that way. As long as you've got an inlet. Because if you have this on and all the inlets are blocked off, you have no difference. Because it won't suck the air unless a door is open, and then it'll start. You'll hear it. Sometimes it'll make a. That's just letting you know that it's getting more air through it. Something is allowed that easy movement of air. You've got to have something coming in if you want something to go out. So, yeah, window vents. They could help. Never get a steamy window. Same process, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to leave that here.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
That's fun.